11th of September 2001, 8:46 in the morning. Thousands of people were watching this at the same time, and before their eyes, a passenger airplane crashed into the World Trade Centers. 2,000 people died as a result, and it caused the Middle East turmoil as well. This attack is full of inexplicable mysteries. The attack on the 15th of September is one of the important signs of the end times. Prophet Muhammad told us 1,400 years ago. This attack triggered a huge chain of events that would impact the world and the Islamic world. It's a metaphysical incident, and it's still mysterious. 2,600 people died, but official reports contain many shortcomings and unexplained questions. Let's look at them one more time. It was said that the first craft that crashed into the towers was a Boeing 767. Boeing 767 is made of aluminium construction, but an aluminium body, no matter how fast it crashes, it wouldn't slice into a building just like a razor. It's against the laws of physics and metallurgy. One of the planes crashing into the building cut through the plane just like a razor. It didn't even lose its wings, and it passed through it. Got out from the other side. But this footage shows that a plane lost its wings, even crashing into the trees. In the Second World War, the Japanese jet fighters that crashed into the ships of USA ships, they could never slice or cut through the ships. They could only damage the jet fighters on the board. 1 hour after the crash, the South Tower came down in 10 seconds only. 29 minutes after that, the North Tower came down in 10 seconds. The official explanation about the collapse said that the fuel storage in the kitchens got ablaze, and then they destroyed the carrying suspension weights. But this is unprecedented. There were 3 buildings that came down as a result of the fire, but none of them were built of steel constructions. In 1945, a plane crashed into the 79th floor of the Empire State, and it only damaged the story, and the building is still used today. There were fires in many skyscrapers, but none of them came down. The steel columns of the buildings, can they be destroyed with the explosion of the jet fuel? The building was made of steel construction, even flame-resistant steel. But even the non-flame resistant steel will start melting at 1,648 degrees only. But kerosene, the fuel of the jet fighters, even if they burn for 40 minutes, can get to a maximum of 1,120 degrees. So, and most of the fuel will vaporize, and even if the temperature reaches that, it won't be able to melt the steel. The building comes down vertically, not leaning against to the sides. Is it enough to plant bombs in every floor to make it come down? In plant explosions, an explosion called thermite is used. This explosion is enough to melt the steel constructions. In the plant destructions using explosions, the steel constructions of the buildings are destroyed at several points. But as we can understand from the footage of the World Trade Center coming down, the building turned into dust. This white dust coming out as a result of the explosion is not something we see in fires or destructions. This happens only with the pulverization of the steel construction of the building. The World Trade, for every floor of the World Trade Center, 434 tons of concrete was used. No fire, no plane crash, or no destruction could pulverize this much concrete, pulverize it, turn it into dust. This white smoke that spread to the city was foretold in the hadiths of Prophet Muhammad. The explosives used in the destruction of the buildings was enough to melt the steel construction, but it wouldn't be able to pulverize the steel construction. World Trade Center was one of the strongest buildings. All of the columns, steel columns, were very thick. the tanks used in the Second World War. They had the strongest armor, but this armor system used in the building is 3 times stronger than those tanks. To make a comparison, we can give an example as follows. The armors of the T-34 tanks, nothing could pierce, nothing could damage them, or they could only pierce a hole on them. And the steel construction used in this building was 3 times stronger than those tanks. So it's impossible to bring down these buildings using explosives. So how could these very strong buildings turn into dust? The World Trade Center was a building that wouldn't be able to destroy, that wouldn't be destroyed with conventional methods. And according to the US regulations, it's impossible to build a skyscraper, it's impossible to bring down. So when during the construction phase, the plan for destruction must be submitted as well. But in the destruction project of the World Trade Center, 77 meters below the foundation of the building, a gap was left. The Soviet Union military structure, according to the treaty, inspects the use of nuclear explosions. And this folder has a file saying urgent destruction plan for World Trade Center. In this method, air blast wave isn't formed in the only a destructive heat wave pulverizes building immediately. If a nuclear explosive was used, wouldn't its destructive effects be all around the city? When we talk about a nuclear explosive, we think of an explosion that destroys the entire city. It's true when it contacts the air, but it's called the atmospheric nuclear explosion. But when it's placed inside a rock, this is called underground nuclear explosion. In the atmospheric nuclear explosion, 99% of the energy is radiated as X-rays. The X-rays are emitted by the atoms in the air, and they can't go far, and they're only in a limited place, and they only emit thermal radiation. In nuclear explosion, this is the thing. This is one of the factors destroying people and buildings. The second is the air blast wave. This travels with the speed of sound, and it's a very destructive power, and then it starts radiating ionized radiation that can kill people. But in underground nuclear explosion, there won't be thermal radiation or the air blast wave, because in order for these effects to be seen, you need air. But an explosive that was placed underneath the ground will not contact air. It will emit 99% of its energy as an X-ray, and for example, it will vaporize the granite around it. But the heat and the temperature and pressure will be so increased, and will start pressuring the rocks around it. And after that, the inner part with plasma will cause expansion in the rock around it. This expanded part will be pulverized in a couple of minutes. If this pulverized place is set to correspond to the underneath of the building, a big part of the building will be pulverized in a couple of seconds. In this here, we see a site used for underground nuclear explosions. Since the bomb was set off at a place that was close to the surface, most of the floor was pulverized. At the moment, we see no effect, but after a while, we will see that the relevant place be turning into dust and sinking. The amount of the nuclear substances used in the World Trade Center is enough to pulverize. So the building came down in a couple of seconds. So this is the reason of the white dust going around the city, and it's also the reason why they could find molten steel. One of the most important evidences of this nuclear explosion is that the inexplicable speed of destruction of the building. According to the physics law, the speed of free fall is known. According to that, an object would fall down only in 9.2 seconds. As we can see from the footage, the building came down in 10 seconds only. We can give an example. If a basketball was dropped from the roof of the building, it would reach the floor in 10 seconds only. So if the building was destroyed with bombs, there would be resistance in every floor, and it would come down in 50 seconds in a minimum. But it came down with the speed of free fall. So this supports the idea of underground nuclear explosion. If this gap happened in the granite floor, we should see that granite gap. We can understand that from this footage that there were huge gaps in the granite floor underneath the building. It melted. This melting can never be explained with any other scenarios. In this picture, we can see that the buildings were very close to other buildings. If a conventional method was used, it would destroy the neighboring buildings. But if the building came down because of fire, the destruction would be even more. But the towers that came down turned into dust during the time they came down, and the debris filled the gap underneath, so they didn't damage the buildings around. You can see the buildings turning into dust when they're still standing. You see the steel antenna of the building. It's not coming down, it's turning into dust and being swept away. These all show that the buildings were destroyed with nuclear explosions. And these people are alleged to hijack the aircrafts. But 9 out of these 11 people are known to be in other countries, have a job, and they have a daily life. So all these show that what happened actually in 9/11 doesn't comply with official reports, and it looks like a metaphysical incident. So the fact that Prophet Muhammad told us 400 years ago, and it happened just like he said, this is one of the miracles of Prophet Muhammad.